In lesson 1.2, we're going to be talking about graphing quadratic functions in vertex form, which is a little bit different than the form that we were using before. Vertex form looks a little bit different, but you can still pick up the vertex from the function. And so when we finish this, you should be able to graph quadratic functions in vertex form rather than the standard form that we've been using up to this point in class. So please make sure that you have a pencil. I'd like you to do your notes and work for Algebra 2 in pencil, please. So recall that the standard form of a quadratic equation looks like this one, where we have the a in front of our x squared, the b in front of our x term, and then the c is by itself without a variable. And we've been able to use those things to find the vertex and also graph the function. This time, in this lesson, we're going to be learning the vertex form, which is slightly different. You notice that there's a letter H in the vertex form and a letter K in the vertex form. The H and the K actually are the coordinates of the vertex. So this is just kind of obvious, the coordinates of the vertex. That's what H and K are. The problem is some students forget that the negative sign here before the H is the standard form. So if you end up having a positive H, you need to make sure that you change that to a negative. Same thing for this. Normally it is a plus. So this is the standard form. Standard meaning the normal way that we would see it of the vertex form. And so if you end up with a negative sign in front of the K, you're going to have to revert that to the proper thing. So we're going to take a look at a couple of examples here. If you look at C, part C down here, oh, just a reminder, I did have this already written in here, but remember that if A is positive, okay, so any positive A, that means that our graph is going to be facing upwards. There's going to be a minimum. In terms of the vertex, it will be a minimum. And anytime we have A is negative, okay, that's in front of the parentheses there, then we're going to have a downward facing parabola and we're going to have a maximum. So let's go back to that vertex form. Remember, A is still part of our vertex form. Y equals A times the quantity x minus h squared plus k. That's the vertex form, but A is still a factor in telling us whether the graph is an upward facing or downward facing parabola. Okay, so in terms of h and k, those are the coordinates of the vertex, so we can basically pull the h and the k out and make those our vertex. Okay, so we're just going to translate them into a point on the graph. Now, let's compare the two things. We had standard form before, which we've been working with. That's the one where we have a times x squared plus b times x plus c. And to find the vertex, we were using the opposite b over 2a. Like this. Whoops, that's a negative sign there. Negative b over 2a. And then we would find our y by plugging in the x value. And then to get the y-intercept, remember the y-intercept was just 0 and the c value of the function. So in this case, when we're looking at the vertex form, it's slightly different. Remember, the function looks a little bit different. We have in parentheses x minus h squared plus k. H and k are going to be our vertex. Simply, we just have to pull that information out and plot it on our graph. To find the y-intercept, we are going to let x be 0 and plug into the given equation. So it's still pretty simple, but there is some plugging in that we have to do. So let x be 0 and plug into the function. If you have any questions on this page so far, please make sure that you note them to yourself and then be ready to ask questions when you come to class. Let's go ahead and take a look at the examples. In example 2, they're simply asking us to identify the vertex, h and k. So I've written the vertex form of the quadratic right over here. That's the standard form. And remember, we normally have a minus sign in front of the h and a plus sign in front of the k. So that's going to help us here remember what we have to do to find the vertex h and k. So in this case, it looks like there is a negative sign here and there is a positive here. So that means then that our vertex is just simply 3, 5. We don't have to change any signs at all because the number here, h and k, are going to be our vertex. Now let's take a look at B. B actually has the signs flip-flopped. Okay, so if that's the case, then we could rewrite this. We could say that A is still -4, but we would say that, oh my goodness, that plus could be 2 negatives, and then we would have to say that that's -2 over here. So that also could be considered plus -2, couldn't it? Okay, so that means then that if we identify our h and k properly, the h is actually -5, not +5, and our value for k is really -2. So our vertex here is -5, -2. In part C, it looks like we don't have anything after our parentheses, and we also don't have anything in front of the parentheses, so we have to kind of fill that part in. And if we rewrite this, we would really have a 1 here for our a value if we were going to be asked to use it. We have a plus sign inside the parentheses, so again, we probably should think about that as being 2 negatives there. And then we have plus nothing, so our k value is just simply 0. All right, so if we have a plus inside the parentheses, we have to take the opposite of that number, because really this is x minus a -2, so h is going to be -2. So here we have our vertex as -2 and 0. So I had to rewrite this because there was nothing here after our x plus 2 squared, and that means that there's really just a 0 there. Part D, again, we need to rewrite this just a little bit. And what I've done to rewrite it is just the adding of the -0 here in the parentheses, and then I put a -1 here just so that you can see that A is 1 since there's a negative sign. Anytime there's that negative sign, just like in part B, remember this is going to be a downward facing parabola when it is graphed, and so it will have a maximum point for its vertex. So in terms of the h and k for part D, it looks like 0 is the h value and 1 is going to be our k, so that's going to be our y value. So our vertex is 0, 1. The next thing we're going to do is go ahead and look at example 3. Here's the function y equals -3 times x plus 2 squared minus 7. So the first question here is to tell whether the graph opens up or down. Well, we know that it's going to open downward due to the fact that the a value is -3. Okay, so we're going to have a downward facing parabola. Find the coordinates of the vertex and then plot it. Well, because we have a plus sign inside the parentheses here, we need to rewrite that as x minus -2, and that gives us our h. H is going to be -2, and the k value is in the outside of the parentheses, so -7 is our k value. And we're going to go ahead and plot that. So -2, 5, and then 7 is going to be somewhere between -5 and -10. So there's my vertex, and remember it's going to go down from here. Find the axis of symmetry. Well, that is our axis of symmetry, isn't it? Wherever our x is. So we can go ahead and plot that. Now it says plug in 1 or 2 values of x of your choice into the equation. I'm going to choose to plug in x is 0. And when x is 0, I can plug that right back in to find my y value. So -3 times 0 plus 2 squared minus 7. So I'm picking my own x, I'm plugging it into the function. And so in this case, my y value is going to be 2 squared is 4, times -3 is -12, minus 7, so that's going to be -19. So the point that I'm graphing is going to be 0, -19. All right, so here's 0, negative 19 is right about here, probably a little closer to 20. Now, because I'm that far away from the axis of symmetry, remember this distance, I'm going to go again to the other side, which is going to be negative 4, 19 as well. So here's my vertex. I'm just going to make it go through that other point and through the point that I had there. And really that's all I need. Now on the assignment I'm going to ask you to pick 2 x values instead of just 1, and then you will have a total of 5 points on your graph. So then it says plot any reflection points. Well, this point over here was my reflection point. Okay, so I did that step before I read the step here. Now you're going to finish this set of notes by continuing on and doing the on your own. If you look at this carefully, you'll see that the graph should be upward facing because your A value is positive. Now, why isn't there a K value outside? Remember, that's just going to be 0 because we could rewrite this so that it's 2 times x plus 1 squared plus 0. If there's nothing here, make sure that you realize that it's just a plus 0. Okay, good luck with the graphing, and please bring any questions to class that you might have about the vertex form.